After finding a whole lot of carrots in the fridge, there was only one thing for it this week. We're going to peel them, chuck in some potatoes, blend everything together, and have the silkiest, most flavorful carrot soup you've ever had. So with all that said, let's get cooking. To start with, we need to preheat our oven to 200 degrees centigrade. Not quite. There it is. And now, as always, we need to get our prep done. We start with about 900 grams of carrots. Whoa, backing up. Then we want to get all the peel off. And here's a handy tip. Start by peeling the larger side of the carrot first. So when you have to hold the slippy part, you have a much more grip. Nicely done. Ooh, nothing to see here. Once that's all done, discard the peel, and we are ready to start slicing. Chop off the ends, and then take the opportunity to show off your basketball skills, or lack of in my case. Then we slice down. No need to be too neat about these, but we want them to be just large enough to take on some char when roasting. And for the thicker chunks, we can cut them a bit shorter or thinner, so that they all cook relatively equally. Once they're all chopped, wait, that doesn't look right. Really should have used a bigger bowl. Let's get these in the oven so they can roast while we finish our prep. Grab some parchment paper and show off your cool new parchment paper cutter thing. Then lay over a roasting tray. Tuck in the sides when you inevitably cut too large a piece. Was it worth it to use the cool cutter thing? Absolutely. There. See? Definitely worth it. Lay out the carrots, making sure there's enough space for an even layer. Okay, that's good. Stop. Pour on some olive oil. Sprinkle across some salt. And get them all nicely coated. This is going to help get that roasted flavour into our soup. Then we pop it into the oven for around 30 minutes or until we see some charred edges. With the carrots in, we can finish the rest of the prep. I'm adding 2 potatoes as it's a great base for thicker soups. Remove the peel, and then we want to chop these into quite small pieces as we want the potato to cook fairly quickly in the broth. We'll then leave the cut potato in a bowl of cold water so they're not exposed to the oxygen, and we can wash off a lot of that starch that we don't want mixing into our soup. Finally, you can't expect a soup to have flavour without onions. But I am actually opting for some shallots. We're going to be bringing in a lot of elements to add depth to this soup, so the more subtle, softer taste of shallots I think is a better option in this recipe. Once we've spent enough time struggling to remove the peel, I found the finer we dice these, the better that they melt into our broth, and the better it takes on that onion element we're looking for. So, take your time at this stage and find the zen in chopping. This is my favourite part of cooking. Once you're happy with the dice, bring everything over to the hob and wait for the carrots to be ready. These charred edges are exactly what we're looking for. This is what elevates a roasted carrot soup from your bog standard carrot soup. Set the carrots to the side and we can begin building our broth. Grab a large saucepan or a Dutch oven and begin to warm up some olive oil. Once you've got some heat into that oil, add the shallots and just sweat them for a good 4 or 5 minutes. Try to keep them moving if you can, as we want them to become translucent and not brown. Then we want to add our spices. I'm adding cumin, ground coriander and celery salt. With that, a couple of spoonfuls of tomato paste, and we are really getting some richness and depth into our soup. I find the puree better than using actual tomatoes for this, as combined with the carrots I feel it brings just a bit too much sweetness. Let the tomato puree cook off a bit and the spices time to activate, for just about a minute or so. Then I'm adding some minced ginger and garlic as a final aromatic. These can burn quite easily, so you don't want to add them too early. Once that's combined, pour in some soy sauce to help deglaze the pan and bring a touch of salty umami into the mix. Now that we effectively have a nice roux forming, we can start to introduce our liquids. I've got about 900 milliliters of chicken stock, vegetable would also work, and I pour in a bit first to help combine everything. When that's combined, pour in the rest of the stock. Soup requires a lot of liquid, so we top that off with about 450 milliliters of water, so as to not overpower everything with stock. And with all of our liquids added, we can bring the temperature up and bring it to a boil. As that's reaching a boil, drain off the potatoes and add them in to cook with the broth. Then, when we've reached boiling, bring the heat down and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, we gather round and keep ourselves warm and tell ghost stories. Or am I getting confused with a campfire? Anyway, after about 10 minutes, give everything a quick stir and then we can add our roasted carrots in. This gives the carrots a chance to soften and offload that delicious roastiness. Leave that to cook for 5 more minutes, and that gives us the chance to whip up what I call the game changer in this recipe. Whoa, steady on. Sensibly maybe, grab a small saucepan and pour in about 150 milliliters of double cream. Reserve a small amount for garnishing later. Add to that 1 bay leaf, a pinch of salt, and some black pepper. Start to heat the cream up, but don't let it boil. We are looking to infuse the flavour of the bay leaf, and so we keep it warm to extract it. After 3 or 4 minutes it will start to reduce, and the aroma will be heavenly. When that's ready, remove the bay leaf with your weapon of choice, and set that to the side. Our broth should be nearly ready now. Check that the potatoes are cooked through. They should come apart quite easily with a bit of pressure. And then we can remove from the hob and start making our soup. In batches, ladle the broth into a blender, hit it with a touch of seasoning, and then we can start blending. I find a powerful blender like this gives us the result of a silky smooth soup that a handheld one just can't quite achieve. Blend until combined, and then add our infused cream. Blend that until everything is homogeneous. Then do one last check for seasoning before adding a few cubes of cold, unsalted butter to give it that glossy finish. Then, right before serving, I like to do one final step. Stir in the juice from half a lemon to really spring the soup to life with a zesty zing. And that's it, a gorgeous carrot soup sure to fill you up. All that's left to do is plate it up. Let's start with something classic. Served in a bowl, perfect for consumption, I'll add a splash of cream. Was hoping for something a bit neater. And then some colour with these Thai basil leaves. They also give off a wonderful aroma to complement the soup. Now I want to create a rustic look, so I'll use a wooden board to house the usual slices of bread, which I've lightly toasted, and that also ties in the brown nicely. That is looking as appetizing as it gets. But maybe we try something a bit fancier. For a more fine dining experience, we want to introduce some height and more empty space on the plate to highlight the food. I've created a ridge using the carrots and lemon I had left over. This brings a raised element as well as a wall for the soup to run up against. Then we can create a pattern on the soup using some herbs like flat leaf parsley. Maybe some on the ridge as well. And then a touch of pepper to fill in the surface. The soup needed to be thinned out a touch, but not bad if you're looking to show off a bit, I think. Now for something more individual. I am loving this option. I even had a colour-coordinated mug to hand. This says cozy all over to me, and if I was coming in from the cold, I would choose this every day. Cheers! And so, roasted carrot soup is served this week. I hope you get to try this recipe. It's perfect for curled up on the couch or a nice dinner party starter. I cook to please, so give this video a like if you enjoyed this recipe, let me know in the comments what you thought of the plating, and remember to subscribe to see more. Until then, start cooking and may the Zen be with you. no, I was being so careful. Good thing no one was around to see that.